Hello guys, you're welcome again to your Netcode-Hub channel. I am actually happy to see you here again. In this channel, that is Netcode-Hub, we facilitate on .NET lessons and projects, which comprise of .NET MAUI and also Blazor, WebAssembly and Blazor server applications. So you can check the playlist and we have a lot. We have actually started a mini project comprising of Blazor and also .NET MAUI, which is for mobile applications. Now, when we do a project, a mini project under Blazor, we do the same thing in mobile application. We want to create for mobile app and want to also create for web application as well. Now, the current project that we're going to talk about here, we've done it to the Blazor application and I'll link it at the description so you can check and click on that and watch. That is known as Blazor Server Expenses or a tracker. So it is just an expenses tracker which keeps track of your expenses that you add to the application. It manages it and it also gets you some graph, your last week and the recent ones, and the bill that you need to pay at the end of every month. That is what this mini application is going to do. Okay, we've done that to the web app and now we're on the mobile app. So if I may have I think I took a picture of the web app. Let me try to open it and for us to see. All right, so you can see this for the web app and I have the video. If you want to learn how to create this, I'll link the video in the description. You can click on it to watch it up. It is for Blazor WebAssembly, no Blazor server application. Now you can see we have this and that tells you the amount that you need to pay or your total expenses at the end of the month. You have your graph for yearly expenditure, you have your monthly balance right here, and you have this monthly expenses, what you've your expense during the month. You can also go for the yearly one. And there's a simple note that you have here. All right, so this is what we tackled on in our WebAssembly. Now you want to do the same thing, not a WebAssembly, that's a Blazor server application. You want to repeat the same application on mobile. So we can install it on a mobile phone. So in this case, I have this. That is the same thing, expenses tracker application. This time around, it is for mobile application. So you can see that we have this dashboard, and like you see, we have this amount to be paid at the end of the month. You have it right here. You have the available fund at the end of the month. And you can see we have this yesterday. If you were able to add any expense yesterday, you're going to have it over here, and that's for the last week or so. So you can see we have this progress bar. You have this progress bar. What are they doing here? Now the total amount, the expenses that you added yesterday to the ratio of the amount that you need to pay. What is the ratio? Is it about 25%? Is it 75%? So the expenses that you added to the application yesterday, that it tells you how much to the ratio that you added. So you see, it means you added something like almost 25%. The expense that you added yesterday was about 25%. And now this is for last week. So to the ratio of this, how much expenses did you make last week or did you add last week? And that is the build, or that is the progress over here. Okay, so if you check it, you can see you have the yesterday amount of $300 here, and I can see you have the 641. So these are the amount that you have. All right, you see we have this available fund, and you can also add fund to this. You can also add expenses. Now, when you come down here, you can see we have all year expenses. So we are grouping all the years, all the expenses that you have added in a year. So 2022, your expenses was this, 2023 and 2024. Now we added 2025 for just a sake. Okay, you can see we are not in there, but this is just for a demo purpose. Now you can see, and also we have the graph. It tells you which year the high spending or the high expense that you made during the year. So 2023 has the high peak one. Aside from that, this is just a tab. So it's an expander, and you can just go for this month. So you can see this month you have the month, what item that you bought. Oh, we forgot to change this color here to white so we can see it well. So you can see for this month of September, this is the expense that I've made so far. So you can see these are the expenses and these are the amount over here. As you can see from this, these are the expenses. Okay, and also this for this 1 month. Now, if I want last year, click on this. So this is the last year, and we are grouping them into months. So you can see from January, this is the June last year. This is the amount that you spend. From August, this is the amount that you spend. So August is the highest, 896. And I can see from September, This is the amount that you spent, 78.9 cedis or dollars. All right, so that is it. Now, aside from that, you can also add this. Can add fund. So you see this is the fund that we have. Let's try to add fund to this, and you can see as soon as I click on it, I have a dialog box, and you can see I have this fund that I can also add. So in case I add 20 here, $20, you can see I have $20. If I click on add, let's see what happens. You can see this is going to increase by $20. So complete. Now you can see it has increased by 20%, that $20 that I just added. And in case I want to add a fund, so let's say I want to add an expenses, and if I click on this, let's add expenses and set the date to yesterday. Okay, so let's click on this add expenses. So you want to check if these bars or progress bar are going to increase since you're adding expenses as yesterday expenses that we made. So click on this. Okay, so you see we have this pop-up over here, and let's add an expenses. So let's say demo testing, and the amount here, I want to add $150, and the date here, today is 27th, so I'm going to choose on 26th, and for September 2023, I can just click on this and I'll click on save. So if I click on save, you can see it has been added to our list over here. Now let's go back and see what we have. So you can see from here it has moved it to 540 here, and at the last week balance also increased, and you can see that it also increased this progress bar. Okay, now you can see we have the total amount that I need to pay at the end of the month. So you can see that they are active, they are real time. As soon as you add the data, they get updated. So they are the real time. Okay, so if I click on this, you see I haven't developed the sidebar yet, but you can see we have just one sidebar flyout item over here, and that's the manage expenses. So where can I add expenses? Where can I delete an expenses? This is just a dashboard. So can I add or delete any expenses that I may added wrongly? You can just click on manage expenses, and I can see we have all the expenses that you've made. So you can click on this and you can just delete it. So as soon as I click on this, you can see I want to do this. You want to delete tutu, that's the name over here. If I click on yes, you can see it's going to be taken off and I'll delete it. Okay, now let's delete what we added. Now let's delete this. So if I click on delete, yes, I want to delete that. Now after deleting, let's go back to the home and see. So it has to call the method and I'll refresh the amount. So you can see you have the same 300 and it has been deducted from here. All right, so let's see. Now let's add a year. So maybe this is 2024. We have up to 2024. Let's add 2025 to this, and now let's see what we have from this table. Okay, so we can add it to that. So when you go back to this and manage expenses, you can see from here that this is just, we have all the dates over here. So it ends up to 2024. So 2023, 2023. Okay, over here. So let's try to add maybe an expense to 1 year. Click on this, add expenses, and now here, let's say this is 2025. So this is 20. So 25 years. Now let's add something like 360, and now let's choose, instead of this 2024, 2023, you can just choose 2025. Okay, 2025 is selected, and I click on save. Now let's add 1 year. You can see it has been added. Let's also add one more, that goes to 2026, and let's choose 410, and let's add 26. So 26, and now let's save that. Okay, so you can see that it has also been saved over here from this 2026. Now let's go back to the dashboard, and now let's see our graph. So you can see we have from 2026, and it has just recalculated it, and now it has drawn the graph for us. All right, now if I click on this month too, it is the same, because this month you haven't added anything to this month. It's supposed to be is for last 2026, right? And you can see from this too, because you have the last year, the same thing as well. All right, so that is what you're going to do in this video. Okay, so the first 10 minutes here, it is for just introduction and also how the application is going to work. Now we're going to start by creating a new project here. So So we're going to create .NET MAUI project. Now when I'm done with this, I'm going to put that at the GitHub, so check the description. I'll leave a link over there. If you haven't subscribed to, you can just subscribe, and if you think this video you're okay with it, please give me a thumbs up, because when you do that, it actually helps this video for many people to also see. Thank you so much for doing that. Now let's get going by first creating a project. I'm going to name it as going to be Demo MAUI MAUI Expenses Tracker. So check that name when you get to GitHub to clone this project. So I'll click on File, New Project, and it's going to be .NET MAUI app. And remember the name of the project, Demo MAUI Expenses Tracker. So that's the .NET MAUI app. The name is going to be Demo MAUI Expenses Tracker. And if you want to check for the web app, it is Blazor. So Demo Blazor or Blazor Expenses Tracker. All right. So there's the location. Click on Next. And you're going to use the .NET Framework of 7.0. So click on Create and get it created. All right. So after your project has been created successfully, there is the next stage to do here is by installing NuGet packages. These are the packages that we need in order for application to be created. And the packages are, we need SQLite database, because that's what you're going to be using in this mini project. Also, we need some components from a third party known as Syncfusion. So we have to install their components such as expander, picker, pop-up, progress bar, data grid, calendar, buttons, and also tab view. So we're going to install these packages. So please pause this video, and as soon as I give you the name, or you see the name of these packages, try to install them. If you haven't installed packages before, please just click on Solution Explorer, and I'll right click on Dependencies, and I'll go to Manage NuGet Packages, and I'll type in the name and get it installed. Okay. Now for this, since I have the code, since I have the links already, I'm going to unload this project. So I right click on my project, then I'll go back to Unload Project. And the first thing I'm going to copy here is going to be for this, the component. So the package that we need to install, the first one, which includes the SQL net database. So for the SQLite, I'm going to paste them here. Let me separate them like this so you can see them. So pause the video and I'll try to install this. So this is the first one, SQLite up to this. You can see I have jconnect2k.mbvm. We need the MAUI chart from Syncfusion. So these are from the Syncfusion chart, and you have to install this syncfusion.maui.com. Aside from that, let's also install this from the Syncfusion and also from James. That's for this MVVM helpers. We're going to use it as well. And install the expander, picker, pop-up, progress bar, data grid. Actually, our whole project here is about Syncfusion component. So that is what. So if today is the first time, then I'm going to introduce you to Syncfusion component, flexible one to use and easy to configure as well. So you can see we have progress bar, data grid, calendar, buttons, and tab view. So with this, before this can work for us, I believe we need to get the license key. So we have to register for a community license key, and if you're able to meet their requirement, they will issue a license key for you for free. Then you can use their component as well. Okay. If you want to know how to get a license key, please check the description. I'll put the link over there, how to claim free community license key from Syncfusion. I've done a video on that. So to click, check, and now open that and watch it and follow it up there. All right. So once I have this, I'm going to save this. These are the packages that we need. So trust me, we're going to install any package aside from this. So install all of this. Let's assume you're done. All right. So well done. Save this, and I'm going to reload this project with dependencies so I can have all these packages refreshed and installed on this machine here. So I'll just go to solution, and now in here, right click on this project and I'll click on reload project with dependencies. So it is reloading. Now you can see it is reloading over here. And if I go to dependencies, we see it is reloading. So let's wait while these packages are installed. Alright, so then now if I click on manage NuGet packages, so if I go to, you can see from output, nothing is showing. So solution, dependencies, manage NuGet packages. Let me do it again. So I'm in. So now when you click on browse, you can just pass in the names and install them. But I think they are installed already. So you see they are all here from the NVVM, MAUI, all the packages, they are also installed from the Syncfusion. So these are the SQLite and that is for Syncfusion. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so they are installed. Now you see there are even new update that we can update them to. But what we are using here is the 23.1.36. But you can also update them as well. But as for now, we want to maintain this. Now what we're going to do here is let's build this application and see if everything is in order. Then we can now start creating our service and our database configuration and so forth. So build a solution. Now let's wait for this build to finish. Then we move on. I always forget to add this after installing. That is at current.uk.maui. I always forget to add this to the program. So let's do that. Solution. Now click on maui program.cs. And now in here, let's add them. So .use maui current.uk and also .configure Syncfusion core. So we have to add this to the project. Let's add the namespaces as well. Alright, so this is done. Can save that and rebuild this project again. So build solution. Alright, so you can see that the process is done and the build has been successful. So the very first thing that we're going to do here is we are going to create our models. The models are the one that we're going to be using for this application, which includes the fund model and also the expenses model. So quickly, we are going to create folder here, and now let's name this folder as models. So add a new folder and rename it as models. So with these models, we first have to create the very first one that is known as an expenses model. So right click on this, let's add that. And after adding this, we need to specify the following properties in this model by making it as public. So we make this as public. And also we have to specify the table name. So for the table name, we want to use this as a table name. So you put it on top here. So we can just get rid of this. Okay, because when we check this application, you can see that when I go to this manage expenses, we are having this. So, we have expense amount, expenses name, we have the ID, and we have the date. So if you can see, we have the date over here, expenses date. So that is what we have here. Aside from that, we also have to create models. Now, these models are for the month. So you can see when we go back to this home, and when we check for the monthly one, so this is a yearly, when you scroll down and we check this month, you can see this month, we have to get the name and also the amount here, the month name and then the amount. So this is for the monthly expenses. Now when you check the year, you can see we have the month name here and then the amount, total amount here. So we need to create that. Now let's do that in here. So we're going to create a model known as expenses model for the month. We put that inside the same model folder. So that is the name. And now in that, we're going to have few properties here. Now with this, we're not going to create a database table for this. So we're not going to provide any parameter here. So there's just a DTO that you're going to use to get data. So here, let's make this as public. Now, when we are done, we have to also create one for the year, because we have to get the year name, that is the year number. If you check this, you see we have the year number. This for the month. So this month, let's see. So when you go back to the first one, that is the all years, you have the year number and also the amount over here. Okay, so the year number and the amount. So we can do that. Let's create another model here. And that's going to be an expenses model for the year. And inside that, we need these properties in here by making this as public. Okay, so now you see that we have all the models that we need. We need the year number, so the total amount. And the last model that we need to create here, it is a fund. So if I want to add fund, what can I do? We have to also add a model to do that. So we're going to say fund. And now this one, we need just two properties by making this public. And these are the properties we need, ID and an amount. Let's set the table name on top here as fund. So control period, we need to include, that is SQLite. We can also remove all this because we don't need them for now. Okay, so these are the models that we need. Now let's go in there and create a database connection string. So we're going to put that in a folder. And now within that, we can also create something like a service for this. Okay, so the service is what we're going to specify our configuration. So let's do that. We can do that by creating a folder, and the name of this folder is going to be services. So solution, let's create a folder to this. And now it's going to be services. Now services, we must have an interface and implementation class. The interface is going to handle all the method, while the implementation is going to handle the method definitions. So let's click on that, choose an interface, and now the name here is going to be the service interface. And aside from that, we also need to create the implementation class, and that's going to be service implementation. This time around, it is a class, so let's do that. So I click on services, add, and then let's add a new class, services implementation. Okay, so when we go back to the interface, what are the methods that we're going to need in there? So we need, first, let's make this as public. Let's clear these namespaces. Then in here, let's paste this. So we're going to have add or update expenses, get a list of expenses, delete expenses, add funds, and also get available funds. Okay, so let's include the models. All right, so these are service implementations supposed to be the interface. So let's move this and I'll put this here. So this is the right place to put them. Let's make this as public. So expenses, let's include them. Let's include the models. Now you see from here, we are returning this and expenses here. The reason is, when you want to, we don't want to, as soon as we add data, you don't want to call the list from the database again. Because when you add data, it's only one object that you are adding. You want to retrieve that object and add it to the list that you have already. We don't want to clear the whole list and reload the page again. When you have a huge data and you need to read the page all the time when the new data is being inserted, it's going to take a lot of time to just get that. So what you do here is you're going to return the data that has been updated, then add it to the SF data or the Syncfusion data grid so you can display it on the screen or show it in the component that you're going to be using. Don't worry, if you don't understand it for now, don't worry. When you get there, you're going to understand it better than this. Now let's go in there and create our implementation first. So within the implementation, let's first have our interface. So here it's going to have a constructor, and I know this has to inherit from the service interface method that we created. So we're going to put that here. Now here we need to create a method to create a database table for us, and there's a method that we are creating to handle database connectivity and database table creation. So we are creating two tables, that is expenses and fund. Okay, this is a database name, so let me make it as demo expenses db. Now there's the first method that we are creating here. So we have our service method. So service method, you can see there's an add or update async. So we check if it is now return. In case it's not now, then we check if the ID is greater than 0, it means you're going to update. So we update it by calling this method and passing this model to update it. And now this model is going to return this, a flag, a message. That's going to be this is a boolean, a message as string, and also an object over here as an expenses. That is the current one which has been updated. So that is what's going to return. And you're going to return this to the user. So you're going to return this 3 object to the user. Now we have to create this method. Okay. And now if it's a new one, then insert it. Now when inserting, I wanted to get the last row. You know, with this SQLite PCL, I tried to get the last row, but I couldn't. So maybe if you know the syntax to get the last row, maybe you can just put a comment section over there. Okay. What I'm doing here is I'm getting the whole list and I'll get the last of the whole table. And that's what I'm doing here, and I return it over here. So that's what you're doing. Now let's include this method. So let's go on and create the other methods, and this method will be, let's see, so we have to create the first method, that's going to be the update, and we have to also have this method, that is to return. So here we call this method to update it, and I can see we are creating a private method that has an update expenses. So it is updating it over here, and I return the results here as a model. Okay, so this also to insert it. So that's to insert. In case the ID here, it is 0. And now this delete. So you can see we are deleting it over here, and you know we are returning just a string and then a flag. And now this to get all expenses. So we get all the expenses as a list and return it. So these are the methods that we need. Now let's talk about creating the fund method. We need only, I think, 2 methods here, so we can handle that. We are not doing update anything, just add fund as well, and that is the only thing that we are doing here. So you can see that there's the add fund method. We get all from the database, and now we check, we add the amount that is coming into the current one over there. We update it or remove it, the other one, and now insert a new one. Okay, so as you can see from here, we check if the amount is not negative. So we add it to this, and now in case the amount is not negative, then we are going to delete the old one and I insert a new one, and I return 2 as updated. In case it is not, that is when it is negative, we add this and have negative, you want to return 3. And in case the file or there's no any, when the fund coming in here is negative, you want to return 4. And in case it's a new one too, then we insert it and I return 1 as inserted. When you have any error in either updating or inserting, then we return unknown error, that's a negative 1. Aside from that, we are getting available funds. So we get all data, that's the fund table. Then we select or we sum up the sum section, because here the sum section is going to be just one table. Okay, so we can just even return this. First of all, we can just remove this to list async, and I use .first or default. You can just grab, because at the end of the day, we're going to have a 1 record. So you need not even convert it to a list. You can just retrieve that and now return the sum over there. That's another way to do it. And there's also another way to do that as well. All right, so that's what we have in our service. So once we are done, the next thing that we're going to do here is we have to register this service in a MauiProgram.cs file. So quickly, solution, and now MauiProgram.cs file, let's register the service here. And let's include the namespace as well. Okay, so now you're good to go. Now, the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to create our views and our view models. So let's do that quickly by creating our folders. So that is views, and we're going to create view model as well. Okay, so now we have this. Let's talk about the view models. So what are the things that you're going to use in the view model? Let's first create a home page view model. And on this home page view model, we're going to create its model or its markup as home page. That's going to be the XML file as home page. So inside this view model, right click on this, and now let's add new class. And there's going to be home page view model. So inside this home page view model, the first thing that we are doing here is we have to create a base view model. So let's create a base view model. Instead of inheriting each from observable object, setting up a page title, we decide to put that in one class so we can call it anytime that we want. So you put it like this. So here is an expenses based view model, and now inside this expenses based view model, we are not doing anything as this. So let me just add this. So we're inheriting from this observable object, and now we set up the title for that. All right, so we can remove this unnecessary using. You can save that. So when we go back to this homepage view model, we can now inherit from this base view model, and also we create a constructor for that. So this is what we are doing. Let me just put up the constructor and inject our service. So we set here as public. So this is public class, and now this class, this has to be a partial class, and it has to inherit from this base class that we have created. So let's do that. And it's inheriting from this base class. Aside from that, we need to create a constructor and start processing. So this is what we inject our service here. So right click, and now let's inject the service. You see we inject it over and then we initialize it here. We are calling this method, and we are calling this show pop-up. So these are the pop-up that you're going to use. So these are all Boolean expressions that we handle. Now this is going to be used to display the pop-up for adding data and also for hiding data as well. Now this is load graph colors. So you can see from the initially when the page loads, we have this graph. We have these colors. So you can see this is light and this one is deep. So we have the colors that we're going to load automatically as well. And now we are calculating this month. So this month is what you see over here. In case I go up there, you see this month, it tells me the current month, that is September. If I change my date up to October, you see currently I am in September. If I change up to October, it's going to display that as an October. So that's the month that we are setting. We pass in the current month ID and now the month ID, and now we're going to get this current culture info and I get the month name. So with this, you have to include system.globalization as well. All right, so this method and these properties, let's start creating them. The first one that we're going to do here is let's create a variable for this month and also load these colors. So the default colors that we load is over here. So you can see from here that we are loading the default colors, that's the load graph colors, and that's this method. So when the page loads, call this method, and now we set the property as this month. So we get the month number and convert it to the string. So you see this is going to be September, October, November, any month at all. Now from this show pop-up, what are you going to do? Let's first handle the expenses models. So we're going to have to create these models to handle that. When you watch the videos for the Blazor, the same application that we use, that is the same thing that we are using over here. We have to create a list of objects to handle the various sections. So you can see we have to get, if you check this, you can see we have to get for only 1 month, we have to get last week, you have to get yesterday, we have to get last year, and you have to get this month, only this month and last year. You see, within the last year, we have to group them into months. Okay, so we have to have a separate models, a list of objects that we can use to handle that. and that's why we are creating all these objects. All right, so let's include the models, and now we are good to go as well. So these are the object for these expenses. Okay, now when we are done, we have to now go in there and create a method. So if you check on the page load, you want to populate all the data over here from the graph to this session. Okay, available funds and get all stars, we want to populate them defaultly when the page loads. So in doing so, we are creating a method here. Now this method is going to be invoked anytime the page appears. So on the page lifecycle, we're going to call this method. So how can we call this method? We can do that by going to this home page, creating this home page, injecting it and calling that method in there. So you can see I'm passing as a relay command here, and the method name is populate data. Now in order to inject or call this method, let's create this home page from here. So let's copy this, and now let's go to the views, and now let's add this model as not a folder. Folder is wrong. You have to add an item. So delete this. So right click on this. Let's add a new item. .NET MAUI content page, and now here it's going to be home page. So we can copy this method. You can copy this home page and now inject it in there. So when you go back to the home page, you can just inject this home page, right click, and now go to view code. So in here, we can just paste in this. So we are injecting this home page view model that we just created. Now we are initializing it as assigning fields here. So in under assigning fields, we can now invoke the method that we call that the populate or call that populate method. So you can see when the page appears, we are calling this method populate data command. So under name convention, this is the method name populate data. But as soon as we are using this observable property on top, it's going to automatically add this command to it. Then we are executing this task. Okay, so when the page appears, you want to call this method over here. And that's exactly what we are doing here. So we call this method. So when this method is called, it's going to clear all the containers over here and now get the data from database and now store it over here. So all this expense data has been stored. Then call this method. So after getting all the data, then this method, or the method in this method here is going to demand the data from this. So we are not calling any service anymore, but rather we are calling the data which has been stored or cached over here. Now this method, that's what we're going to create next. So the method name here, let's check it up. We have the method name specified, that is a prepare all expenses chart. So that is where even the name tells you that it's going to be the chart method. That's what we're going to use or we're going to create in there. Okay, so with this, after doing that, the method name or the method that you need to create here is first, we are going to populate it. So let me just copy this and paste it there. So you can see this is a method that we are going to put the definition. So this is a method definition. Now let's go through it quick. This is a method name. Now we get all the data. You can see we have the data here already. So we are grouping the data based on the year. So when you check, you can see we have how many years here. You can see we have from, let me go up. Okay, so you can see we have from 2020 up to 2026. Okay, so all these are the years. So it is grouping them by year. And after grouping them, so another grouping, you're going to have by the year. So the year is going to be the key. You're going to have 2022, 2023, and so forth. And each key is going to have a list of data in it. So that's why we are arranging the data based on the year. Okay, so we are arranging them in ascending order. Then we are looping through and add it to this method. Remember that this is the method that we are created as a container, list of container object here. Also here, so as you can see, we populate all year's data. We add it to this. And now here too, we are populating the last year, only last year. So how do you find the last year? We know that this item here or this group here contains a key, which is the year. So we are checking if the key is equal to today's date minus 1 year. Okay, so that's going to be last year. So if today is 2022, it's going to be 20. No, if today is 2023 minus 1 year, it's going to be 2022. So if the key is equal to 2022, then that key contains the current year that we want. Then loop through it and add it to last year data. Aside from that, populate this month. Now we have all expenses here. We want to group them by this month. So we want to check if today's date, okay, dot month dot year is equal to the item in there. And if the month is also equal to, we are comparing the year and the month. If they are equal to, put them in the list and I loop through and add it to this month. So this is going to handle only this month, the current month that we are in now. Aside from that, call this method. Now here it is get available funds, and that is this method that it is calling get available funds, this one. And now get yesterday's expenses. So this is going to be yesterday's expenses. And now get last week data. So this is the last week expenses over here. And now get yesterday and last week progress bar. So these are the progress bar that you're going to get. So we're going to populate this as far as all expense data has data, or this month has data. All right. So once you call this method definition is going to come soon. We are grouping all this by year too. Here it is group by month with last year records and then total the amount. So you can see we have the last year data here. We group it by a month, and now we the month name we are going to also group. Now it may be that we may have maybe January 2 times because the item may be added to January 2 times or 3 times. So in that case, you're going to have a duplicate data. So what you're going to do here is the data that we have as a result, we have to also group the data from the month to the month ID. Okay, so that's the month number. So if it's a January, you're going to group all January at 1. They're going to have 1 key. If it's a February, then group all February and have 1 key for February. So that's what we are doing here, and we populate and add it to this list. Remember that this month in last year, it is a list that we are adding. So here we are creating a new expenses model for month. Here we need the month name. That's why we're using this culture info to get the month name. And also we have to get the total by setting up to the total number here. So this is the total amount, and you can see we are summing up the total amount here. That's a way to get the last year. And now we did the same thing to get the year. So you can see from here that we've done this already. So let me clear this. Now we are grouping them by year, as you can see, by year. And I group them by year number. We loop through it. We make it in order form as from the lowest to the highest. And now we add it by creating a new expense model for year. Here we need only the year number and then the total amount. And that's exactly what we are getting here. So you can see we have the year number and then the total amount on top here. So these are the things that we are generating for the graph. Okay. Now, aside from this, let's go in there and create this method. That's a get available funds yesterday and this subsequent method that we are creating. Okay. So with that, let's see. So to get this available funds, we have to first populate it in here. So the first method that we are using to get available funds is, we have to create this. I know the method name has been specified here already. So get available funds, we get all available funds. We call this service method. Then we are going to check. So available fund is equal to this fund minus this month dot sum. Okay, so we're going to sum up this amount. Now this month contains all the month that we have. Okay, so we're going to sum it over there, and we set the value to this available fund. Now this fund here, it is coming in from all the data that we have from the database. So we're going to take only this month. That's why we are subtracting it, and I return this fund. All right, so you see, let's have a look at this available fund property that you have to create. So before you create this, let's work on the fund. So in that, let's first create this method here, and that is working on the fund. So we have some few methods that we need to define. You're going to do that soon, don't worry. So we have this fund method, we have this available fund over here, we have this object as man fund, and now show pop-up. Okay, so this is going to handle the display of the pop-up and now the hiding of that pop-up as well. And now we have this method known as add fund pop-up. So in case I click on add fund, what do I want to do? I want to show the pop-up. That's why we are setting this pop-up to true, and we instantiate this object that we created over here. Okay, now if I click on cancel or close, what do I want to do? I want to call this method to hide this pop-up. That's a fund pop-up. So you can see we also clear what you have in there, and now we set this to false. That's going to hide that. Now if I process everything and I click on add fund, what should happen? If I done here, if I click on add fund, you can see this pop-up must come. Okay, so when this comes, what should happen? It must have this name, and I can see it must have this button as add, so I can click on add. Now if I click on this add, what are the methods that I want to handle? Okay, so that's what we have to take a look here. So this is a method that you're going to handle as soon as I click on add fund. Now with this method, we check if the amount is equal to 0, then display this. If else, then add it to the fund. Call this service, passing the fund method. The return here, remember that here returning 1, 2, 3, and 4, and etc. So with here, we check case if it is 1, then it is completed. If it is 2, completed, that's updated. And if they are 3, 4, or -1, mean we have error. Now when they are completed, either added or updated, call this method, get available fund. It means that the fund has been increased or has been, there's a value which has been added to that fund. So get the current ones. So as soon as this is done, it's going to call also another method to get the current data from the database. All right, so that's what we have in for this method. Now we have to also process for yesterday expenses, last week expenses, and so forth. So in doing that, we are specifying these properties on top here as yesterday expenses, last week expenses, and this month expenses. And that's what we use to populate it over here. So we see from here that we have this yesterday, last year, right? And then these are this month expenses on top here. So how are you going to calculate it? First of all, let's get the available funds. So this method is going to get the available funds as I've explained already. Now the next thing here is we want to get yesterday and our last week fund. So to get them, that's the expenses. So to get yesterday expenses, we are checking if the current date is equal to date minus 1, then we're going to put them in the list and now sum the amount filled. Okay, so after that, setting up to this, remember that this yesterday expense here, it is a decimal. So it can handle the decimal places as well as you know it has to be done in monetary aspect. And now this get last week expenses. So in this last week expenses, you can see we have to get the date time and we subtract -9, which is going to give us last week date. And now we check for this month, we order them by date, and now we take while this condition is met. So what is that date? It is less than or it is greater than or equal to this date. So if it is greater than this, it means that it is a current week. Okay, that's the expense that you want to handle. Then if it is not now, we set this last week decimal expense here to the sum of this last week that we have to get that last week expenses. All right, now the last one here is to get the progress bar. You know, the progress bar is also very important because it tells us the value or the ratio of the amount that we have related to the total, the gross sum that we have in here. So you can see from here, if you check that the whole amount is 2076, but yesterday we spent about 309. That is almost about 25% of our expense. So yesterday the expense that we added was even a 25% of the total expense that we had earlier on. Okay, the same thing applies to last. So last week, how much did you spend? And that's what you can see here, right here. Not actually spend. How much expense did you even add? Because here it is an expenses tracker. So it keeps tracking of your expense that you've made. At the end of the day, it tells you the amount that you have to pay for. That's the end of the month. It has to tell you this is the amount that you have to pay for. Last week, this is the amount that you spent. And yesterday, this is the amount that you spent as well. Okay, so that's why you have this. So in order to populate it, we have to call this method to do that. And that's what you see, populate progress bar. We create all into decimals over here. So for yesterday progress and last week progress. So to get them, we set this month expenses is equal to what? That's a this month dot sum. So we're going to sum all the month expenses for this month over here. Now aside from that, we are checking if the value of this month and last week they are not 0, then we want to find the ratio. So it's like find the percentages. So the last week expense is equal to this last week amount that we have divided by the total amount we have for this month multiplied by 100. We're going to have the percentage right here, and we use that percentage to display the progress, okay, of the bar. Good. We did the same thing to the yesterday expense over here. So you get the yesterday's expenses, and now we divide the last week. So this for last week, right? So here, let's see, for yesterday. supposed to be yesterday's expenses divided by this last week. All right, so it's supposed to be last week. So here's supposed to be yesterday's expenses. So divided by this month's expenses times 100. So we're going to have this last week expenses in here. All right, so we have completed this progress. Now what we can do here is we are also going to create, that is our next view model, and that's a manage expenses page view model. So when we are done, then we create the views. So we are done with everything. That's the back end here, left with the front end. We're going to do that soon. But let's go to this manage expenses view model. Here we have to add an SF grid so we can display this over here. And in case I click on this, add expenses, I want to have this pop up. So let's populate that as well. Now, when we go back here, this is what we are doing. We're going to create a view model. And the view model is going to be like manage expenses page view model. So that's going to be a class and manage expenses page view model. So in that, we are going to create a constructor and also inject the constructor in here. So let's set this to public. And now, for this, we must have this observable property. So control period, we have to include this community toolkit namespace. And now with this, it has to inherit from this, the base view model that we created. Okay, let's clear this once off. Now, the reason why we have this key here is we're going to use in navigation. When you get to this home page, take note here that the home page, now there's an add expenses. So normally this is where it's supposed to be. Now, if I go to the home page and I click on add expenses, it has to navigate me to that page and I also open the pop-up. So check here and see. If I click on add expenses, you can see the pop-up must be open. So I can even add, without even going to that page, I can still add the item over here. Okay. Now that is what we are going to have a look. So this is what we're going to handle that. So we are using the query string to handle that. Okay. So to do that, what we are doing here is we have to pass in the query string on top. Now this query string, let me put it here. It's a query property, and now there is a name that's going to handle that. That's the navigation ID. And now there is the key that is coming in. So when we get to add the key, when we get to where we have to click on the button to navigate to this page, we have to provide a value for this key. And this value is what's going to be stored inside this navigation ID. Okay, so that is the property that we create for. All right, now let's add the interface as well. And now you can see we have show pop-up also popping up over here, and we have selected date. So we set selected date is equal to today. Now to do that, let's see. So there's also a method that we need to create, and that's going to be check for query string. So we check if query string is 0 is equal to 1, then as you can see, prepare a new expense model. Then show pop-up, okay? And after that, set navigation ID to 0 so that it won't repeat itself again. Because here, the pop-up only shows when the ID is 1. Now, the next thing is, let's create an object for this. So the first one, that's going to be the expenses model, and also the Boolean expression to handle the pop-up. So that's what we're doing over here. And aside from that, we have to create when there's a change occurred. So where from this change, this occurs when the date change. So you're going to create a method that is known as that method, and you're going to pass in selected date is equal to this. So when the value of this changes, you want to invoke this method and then get the new value which has been added to this. Okay, and we're able to do this because of this observable property that we have on top from this community toolkit.mvvm. All right. Okay, so let's see. With these expenses, let's use this model. Let's include the namespace. Now, aside from this, the next thing that we are doing here is, if I click on show pop-up or add expenses, what do I want to do or what do I want to happen? And that is if I click on this. If I go to home page and I'll click on this add expenses, this pop-up must appear. And that is what is going to handle that. So here, let's include the namespace as well. And the next thing here, it is we are on the pop-up message section. So we're also going to create a pop-up message to display an information to user when added or updated. So we create also a pop-up message section. We pass in the pop-up message, the title, the show message pop-up, and also we have the method as close message pop-up. So when the method is being closed, this is the method that you want to handle. Or when the pop-up is closed, you want this method to handle that. Okay, what if in case I click on save? So save, what should happen? Save expenses. Let's put it down here. So save expenses. Now I am talking about this. If I click on this save, what should happen? I must populate, check if everything is okay, then send it to the service. And that's exactly what we are doing here. So we set the date to the value of the selected date that has been changed from this. And now we check if it is not now. Okay. If it is now, you want to specify this to the user. You can customize the way that you want. But here we are using this environment.newLine to push it to the next line. Okay. Then we set all this to false, 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 and return. But in case it is true, in case everything is done, then call this service and I'm passing this model. Remember that when this model gets to the service is also going to check if the ID of this is greater than 0, then update it. Okay. If not, then it's going to add. So after doing everything, it's going to come out with a flag. So if the flag is true, then get all this expense data.add, add the current data. So as you can see from here, we have this simple comment. So let's check if added or upgraded or updated. We can do that by checking the incoming message. So this is the incoming message. Now we are saying that the incoming message is going to come back with a save. Because when you check our service implementation, when we add new data, it is saying that saved. So there's an add or update. Click on this. And you see we have saved. So when we convert that to lowercase and it's equal to save, it means the new data. Then you want to display this. But in case it's an old data, then we call this service here and I pass in the old data to it. All right. We are not even calling a service. As you can see from here, if it's an old data, then we get under expense data.first or default. Okay. That is when, and if updated, then we want to remove the old one and insert the new one. So that's why we are updating it over here. And if everything works, create a new instance of this expense model and I'll show pop up to false. All right. Now the next thing that we are tackling here is to get this expenses data. So let me put it here. So to get this expenses data, we are creating an object of list of this. Then get all expenses from the database. So results equal to this get all expenses. If it is now, then clear it and return. But in case it is not, then order it by year, that is by date, and I'll add it to this expenses data. Now let's handle row selection. In case I select row in the data grid, what should happen? So for row selection, we can use this method to handle this row selection. All right, so handling row selection, we create an expense model as selected data row. So when that's a partial void, when the value of this changes, then also call this, set the value to this selected row, and I'll call this manage selected row service. So where from that service? Let's have a look to that service. So in here, the service will be down here, and now you can see manage selected service. We are calling this. Now I can say what we are doing here is if I click on page like this, I must have this pop up. So that is what we are displaying as an action sheet. So if I select any, that is if I click on edit, populate it, and I'll display this message. Now let's see. So here, that's an edit, that's electricity bill. If I click on edit, see what happened. The edit, and now this edit, because I have this electricity bill, you have this amount and everything set, and I can click on save or add. Okay, new data as well. So that's what we are doing over here. We display this option. If I click on delete, then give it, are you sure I want to do it? If then call this service, and now if it is true and deleted, then select it from the database, and I'll remove it from the database. Remove it from the database that the user has on his phone, on the laptop, and remove it as well. When you're done, then if everything happens or if there's any error, then display this error alert and pass in the message that is coming in. Alright, so we have this method created peacefully. Now what we've done here, what we're going to do next here, it is to inject this method into our views, or creating our views and injecting this method in there. So let's get going with that. So before we create the views, I want us to register these view models before you forget it. So let's go to solution my program.cs. Now beneath where we have the service injected or created, let's add this home page view model with its respective home page. Now manage expense view model with its respective view as manage expenses. So we are going to create this view. So let's include the view models. Now with this view, we have it here already. We have the home page already. So let's include that. It has left with this view. So we're going to do that soon. You can actually copy this and let's inject this into the code behind file for each view. So when you go to this main page, home page.xml, you can see it has been injected over here. Now let's go in there and create one for the view for this. So new item, content page, and now let's paste in the name that we just copied. Okay, so after creating this, we have to inject this. So what we're going to do, we can just go to the code behind file. So right click and click on go view code instead. Now this is what we are doing here. We are injecting the view model, as you know. And now when you do that, we initialize it here. Now when the page appears, you want to call two methods. You want to check for query string if it is navigated. Because anytime the page is popping up, you want to check if the ID is not 0, then it means you have to navigate and follow that direction. And also get expenses. So this is going to populate the expenses anytime the page loads, so you can see things here. So if I click on this page up, if I click on this, okay, and I click on home, as the page appears, this method gets created. Okay, this method gets executed. Alright, so it means we are done. Now let's go back to the app shell. And now with this app shell, let's register this route here. So app shell. And now in here, let's register routing for this manage page. So control period, let's include the namespace for where that view model can be found. Okay, now once you are done, I want us to create a simple flyout item to display the item that we have. So copy this and now go back to the solution, shell again, and now here let's clear what we have here and now paste this. But now while you have this, you have to include the namespace. So while you have this local over here, let's add dot, and you might have access to views. Yes. So this is also solved. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to create our views for this. Okay, so we have to also, let's do that as well. So we, under this home page, let's first work on this manage. Okay, so let's work on this manage express. That is an expenses, not an express. Okay, so manage expenses page, and let's clear all that we have in here. What I'm going to do here is manage expenses, and this is a project name. So I'm going to copy this project name and maybe put it somewhere here. Okay, now I'm going to clear everything from this because we're going to be adding new ones in there. And now from this home, this is a manage expenses page. We are going to add a content page, and also the thing that we are going to be using, the namespaces from the Syncfusion component that we just installed. And That is it over here. So from this, you know, we are using, so from here, I'm going to copy this name. Then I'm going to paste it I'm going to change it to this. And I believe that that's all. Okay, so we need to change the class name. Now, and also this view model. So let's check it up. So we have the view model. Also, we have to also change this. Yes. So these are the references that we are adding from the Syncfusion component. You know, we need data grid, pop-up, button, input, picker, and now the layout. So this is the layout going to give us access to button, access to datetime, access to SF numeric text box, access to buttons, access to pop-up, and also data grid. And now we have our view model also added. We have the title also injected peacefully and beautifully. Okay. What we are doing here is first, we are creating our content header. And now this is our content page. So here we're going to create this. That is a toolbar. Now this is a toolbar. So if I click on home, okay, we're talking about home, talking about this manage expenses. We have this toolbar that's an add expenses. And as soon as I click on it, it's calling this method here. Now the next one that we are doing here is we are creating this stack layout. And now passing in the first statement or the first view here. So we create our stack, and at this stack we are creating for a grid. Now the row is supposed to be star, so we're going to cover everything. We are calling this SF data grid. Then we bind the source here to this expenses data that we created earlier on in the view model. And now if it is selected, you can see here we have a selected row. Okay, we have it also set. We set selection mode to also single, sorting mode to single, and now that is the height also specified. And now you can see we have this show sort number we also set to true. Now, these are the properties that we need to do. This SF data column, which are the column that you want, expenses name, amount, and date. Now, you can see from here that you have expenses ID, name, and amount. That's what we have here. Now, the mapping name is supposed to be equal to the names in the model. So, when you come here, you can see we have this the model, expenses, so you must have name and amount and date time. So, that's what it is matching up to. All right, now we have this. The next thing to do is we have to create a pop-up, and the pop-up is what we're going to use for the adding of the item. Okay, so for this pop-up, let's see. Now down here, I'm going to paste this as a pop-up. So the pop-up, we are calling this pop-up key here. As you can see, that is a reference we added, and now there's a pop-up. So as you can see, this is a pop-up for adding and updating the expenses. Also, it also contains message pop-up to display just message only. So we have this pop-up as well, and it is calling this method. This pop-up has a two method that you can actually call. That's an accept command and also decline. Here we are focusing on the accept. So if I click on this button, what should happen? So you can see if I open this and I click on add, this accept here, that's the save button. So if you check here, you can see we have that save button, save, and that's the button here. So if I click on it, what should happen? We've also created a view or a handle definition method for that. And now when we move on, we have the template, and that is where we create our frame and we pass in this entry from this input from Syncfusion and numeric text box for the amount. And also you can see we are using an SF date picker to select the date, and I will bind the date to this selected date. Okay, and remember that the mode are in two ways, so either in and out anyhow, or any way it has to work, or it has to attach it to the model that we have provided. We have a button, and this is the pop-up for display message, and this is for the title and now for the pop-up message as well. If I come to this side, you can see we have this show overlay that is always is true. Now here editable is true. You can also set this is a custom font size, and also the custom font format. C2 is a $sign symbol. We have this accepted command, and you can see we have this animation, and overlay mode is what the blur, and stay open is true. This stay open turns it to a modal mode unless you click on the button on the page. It's not going to go off. So let's see. If I click here, because nothing goes off, and it is blur because you set this to blur. Now the animation here, it is slide up. Watch here. If I click on this, see what happens. Because it slides down. If I run again, it slides down to up, and that is animation sign out in here. All right. So it seems everything is set and done over here. Let's work on the home view. So from this home view, I'm going to also copy this method, this is the name, and I'm going to paste it over here. And I'm going to clear all that we have from this. So from this home view as well, we are going to talk about, we've already bound it, so we have to talk about this once. So we're going to set the background. So home view, that is what's going to handle a whole lot. Okay, so let's see. First of all, I'm going to paste this, and now you see we have this content page. So let me just cut this and then replace it with the method names in here. So you won't have any error in doing that again. Now, as you can see from the earlier on, the same thing, that's what we are doing here. As you can see from this, we are calling for this. We include the following namespaces from the Syncfusion, and that is what we're going to use now. All right, so let's see. So from that, this also must change. Okay, so one thing here is you can see from this application, you have the icon here. If I click on home, we have this icon. Okay, so for icon, we've added a font, and now that font is, we go to this, you can see from the my program.cs file, we have to add that font. So this is what you're going to do. Let's work on that, then we continue with it. So if you haven't, or if you don't have this, make sure you install this font. Okay, so I'm going to add it to our applications. So let's see, from this font folder, you have to be in the font folder, and now it's going to be this open iconic font. So I'll go back to the resources, and now you can see we have this font folder here, font. So I'm going to add this. So you can just download this from the internet, openiconic.ttf. That is a true type format. Okay, now it is. When you are done, go to the my program.cs, and now let's register this font in there. So we have to register this font in here, and we give it a name as icons. So there's an icon. Now, when we are done, we need to convert this font into C# code. Okay, so to do that, we can use, there are a lot of links that we can use to convert this into C# code. Okay, and maybe I'll leave a link in the description where you can also convert a TTF format, that's a font, to a C# code. But for now, we are going to create a folder here to our project, and now in this folder, we are going to name it as, that is the icon helper. So after creating this, we need to then create a class, and now this class is going to be icons. So icons. So I will leave the link on where you can just select this, convert this icon format into C# code. Okay, and I'm going to paste this. So this is the code for all these icons. Now you can see we have converted them into C# code, so we can now use them. Okay, so these are the ones that I have over here, and you can see they are just static files. So yeah, and let me just close this. So now we can use this font anywhere that we want. So that is why we when you go to the home page, you will see we are including this demo view model .icon helper, and that is a folder in here. Okay, so this is a class that we are creating. We are linking as an icon here. Okay, now we have this. Now with this thing, we have to also add this model. So let me also include this. We want to refer to the models over here, and now we set the background color to black, and now the shell background color to also black. That is the reason why you can see you have this black, everything black, black, black. Okay, not actually black. This is the color code I'm using. You can actually just check. Okay, so for now, let's come back to the home page design. And I know UI stacks a lot, because actually when you want to design something, it takes some time to do that. And if I decide to create it with you, you spend like a day here. So what I'm doing here is, you see I have other things set over here, and I'll leave it at the GitHub, so you can just go in there and get it. Okay, very simple as well. Okay, so the first thing that we are doing here is we're going to create a grid. let me just copy everything from here, what I have, so we can just go through quickly. So I'll just grab this. And now in here, let me just paste it. So I'll have this from this area. Then I'll paste it like this. Now quickly, let's go through. You see it's a lot. Let's go through. So first of all, you see we are creating this. We set this content page behavior, and we set this status bar as what? As black. So that's why you see from here, everything is black over here. Now we have a grid, and we have the 10%, 10, 10, 30, 50, making 100. We have the next one as auto. Column is divided into 2 sections. So we have the first one, that is the dashboard icon and header section. So dashboard icon and header section. So that is what this method is handling about. And you can see we are using the static helper class, and I can see we can have access to this icon static class, and we are using this 4D. This 4D looks like the dashboard. It actually looks like a pizza, right? If we check this, it looks like pizza or something like that, but that's the dashboard icon. So that's what we are using over here. Now the next thing is the add fund label. So where from this add fund label, if I come here, it is an add fund label, so expenses and available fund, and that's what this label is doing. The next thing here is you can see we have a grid, that is a 5, 5, that is 50, 50. So these two rounds boxes over here, and this is the first one. We are using this first one as a border, second one also border over here. So this is the second one. So we have 2. So each is 1 here, 1 and 1 over there. Okay. Now in that, this is what we are having. We have this vertical stack layout, and we have the various sections created in. From this amount or this month expenses, we call this method over here. Notice the property that we created. So as yesterday expenses 2 we added, last week we also added as well. And at the string format here, we format it so we can add text to it. So yesterday, then added, call the 0 here means the first model or the first variable here. So that's what we see. We have the yesterday, and you have the amount last week, and then the amount. Now from this progress bar, you see it is just simple from Syncfusion, and it's just progress bar, and now we need to specify the progress. So we get the value here, percentage, and then pass it in here. Very simple thing, and that is what we are doing right there. All right, and the next thing that you're doing here is the button. If I click on go to add expenses page, what am I going to happen? So that is it. If I click on this, what should happen? We've coded the method over there already. So if I click on this, a pop-up has to come for us to just move on. All right, so that is for that. And the next thing is, let me see. Okay, so the grid here is over. We can just close this grid. And now you can see we have this graph. So graph and our chart session. So you can see this is a graph and our chart session. Now from this, we are using this expander or the accordion. So you know, if I go up, you see I can open this at a time. I can also open this. So you see we have an accordion, you have 3 separate items. So you have 1, 2, 3. So we have this in the SF accordion over here. And now you can see we have this the items. So this is the first one. So you see this is the first one. Okay, accordion item header. And now you can see this is the title. And here define the X and the Y axis here. And now down here we are binding it. So as you can see, the text here it is here. The text here is what amount. Now this is for Y axis and this is for X axis. So you can see when you check here, when you check this all expenses, we have the X axis from this the amount for Y axis, and now the X axis here it is for year. Okay. Now the same thing from now we bind the columns, so we bind to the years data, and now there's a palette brushes, so we can have access to the brushes without using one color. That's what we see. Some are deeper than others. Okay. And the next one, the next accordion that we are using here, it is the monthly expenses. So here we're not using this self-Cartesian chart, we are using this circular chart, and that's giving us the pie chart. So the pie chart, we have to specify the title. So this is the title that we are specifying. So we get the expenses here, that's this month's name, and add the expenses. So that's what you see from here. This month, we have September, then the expenses. Then aside from that, we have to bind the pie series. So this month data, we specify the X name, that's the X axis, and the Y axis. Okay. Now the next thing is the last accordion, and that's for the yearly expenses. So that's the last one here, last year. So this, I know for this you have the title set over here, and you have the chart legend also to write, and that is what you see over here. This is the right section, and as you can see from this, we are specifying the pi series, and that's the month in last year. So and that's what we're going to have this chart created. All right, then we have this the pop-up section, add fund. So if I click on add funds, I want to pop up this. So you can see we have the show pop-up, and now when this accepted button is clicked, we're going to handle it by this. So if I click on this add fund, a pop-up must come, and there's an add. So this add going to happen. Now we are setting this. Let's see. So and that is this one. So you can see we have this animation mode, and etc. blur and etc. So if I click on this, you can see here it is blur. Now close it. You can see it comes down, and if I click on add again, it comes from the bottom. Yeah. So that is the features. Now I'll leave the documentation to the description, so you can actually go through a lot. And now there are a lot of features that you can actually add it depending on your criteria that you want to add to your application. Okay, so we have this data except the same except for pop. This to display the fund amount. So if I click on this, the fund amount. Now the first one here, it is a pop-up message. Okay, and now here, so this pop-up here, you can see this is the first one for adding this. The section, the pop-up, there are two. Take note. This is the first one. Okay, so the very first one, it is the one that we use for. One is for just adding funds. Okay, and here this is for the pop-up template. So this is the whole pop-up. So this is the header, and now this is a section. Now the content, we are using the data template to loop through it, or to just specify a frame in it. And as you can see from here, we can now add this. Now we don't even need a scroll view because I just copied from the first one. That is why. So you don't need this. Now you can see from here, the first one, when you go back to, if I click on add fund, you don't need any scroll view here. But when you go back to this and I click on manage expenses and now add expenses, you can see we need a scroll view here, so we can have access to. Take note, if I click on this and then the text pops up, I have to scroll. I can just scroll in here. As you can see, I can just scroll up and down. Yeah, so that's the reason why I added that. But you know, with this, it is just a small box, so we don't need any scroll view here. Then we add it over here as well, and I save it. All right, so very simple, and that is it. So it seems we are done with everything. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to build this application and I'll run it again and see if it is working as we have the old one here. So I'm going to close everything from here, close all tabs. Yeah, so all save. And now let's build this, build solution. Let's wait for the build to be done. If it succeeds, then we can now run this application peacefully. So take note that I'm going to leave it at the GitHub. So check the description. There will be a link and just click on it and then go to GitHub and download it. You can also review this application when you run it and start going through. All right, so it seems we have some errors here. Now let's focus on the red ones, and you can see we have demo app. It means we haven't replaced the names yet. Now let's check it up over here and see. So okay, so this is the demo expenses. It has to be changed. So we have to change and now use the name. So that's the homepage view model. All right, so I think when you look at it well, it is saying that there's a command which is not found, right? And that is this command. Go to add expenses page command. All right, so let's check it out from this view model, and that's going to be the homepage view model. I think we must have that command in there, which will just navigate the user to that page. So let's check it up. So we go back to this homepage view model. All right, and in here, do we have any method known as go to? No, we do not. So let's set it up. Let me just minimize this method so we can actually find it. So we have all these, and I'm not sure we have something like that. Okay. So this is an get available funds. You have these. Okay. All right. Okay, so then let's add this command here, and there's a go to add expenses page, open and add expense pop-up using a string query. So we are setting a string query here from the view model. So manage view model, we are setting this query string here, so we have to provide it from this. So let's specify this. Let's include the namespace, and you can see that is when that button is clicked, go to async, then pass in the ID of 1. Okay, so we save that, and I think everything will be solved now. Let's do it again and see. Alright, so you can see that it is successfully built. Now let's run it and see what we have now. So I'm just clicking on this. So there is the previous one. Let's wait for this to get run. Now if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do that. You can give a like to this video as well. In case you want to also buy me a coffee, the link is over there. Check the description, and I'll be glad to get it. Alright, so let's wait for this to get. Alright, so you can also get in touch with me as well. I have the link over there. Check the description. Actually from team, Microsoft team, I have the link over there. You can also join. And so in case you have any issue when you watch this video and start to code, you can have a look at it as well. Alright, so it is now ready, and if I click on no, with this we have to install get a license key. Let's click on OK to see if it wants close. Yeah, it is off. So it means you have to license it before we can actually use this. Okay, so if you get here and you want to get a license, check the description and watch the video over there, and you can now go to the Syncfusion site and get a license and now use that. But from this, I have a license here, so I'm going to just use it for this application purpose. Okay, then we see what we've done now. Alright, so it is back again. Now we have everything empty, nothing over here. You can see from this month to last year, no data. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a data here. You can see yesterday, last week, everything is just like that. Okay, now we did not include the flyout, so I'm going to do that in the shell. So solution, then we go back to this app shell, and in here let's set this to flyout. Save this, and I think it must be visible here. Let's click on manage expenses, and now here let's add this here to see. So the first one is on electricity. Let's use electricity here. Maybe let's pass in the bill amount 56. Let's use the date 2023. This is okay. So if I click on save, you can see it has been saved. Let's add another one. So something like water, and the amount 56.7, and let's choose a date here. Maybe yesterday was 26, and save that. Okay, so now let's go back to the home, and now click on home, and you can see it has now generated a page and everything is working as you can see. So we can also font. So let's add a available font here, 56, and now add this, and I can update this. So it's okay, it has been updated as well. And if I click on this month, because we have only 2 data here, and if I click on last year, no record as well. So only this month, and we have our graph. We can also test the last year by adding just 1 data here. So let's say this is last, and 347, and here the last is 2022. So save that, and now let's go back again, and now click on home, and I can see from September to September, from last year, because you have the last year over here. Alright, so that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to leave it at a GitHub, so you can also get in touch with this. You can buy me a coffee as well if you're okay, and if you like what I'm doing, give the video also a thumbs up in case you're okay with this as well. And thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, and I'm going to catch you up